kind of seen his growth in that. How did you maybe compare how he did last season to what he does now?
Yeah, I'd say the most noticeable thing for us is it really takes very little conversation now. If there's a mistake that he could have done better, usually for us it's more moving less, right? Like he's gotten to the point where he's reacting to pockets, but then you want to move as little as you need to. So last year we were talking about that all the time. This year there's very little conversation, and when we do have to have the conversation, he already knows. A lot of it at this point is how do we become firmer? How do we make sure we're better against this pressure? How do we help the right guard? How can we be better in our drop? It's something very subtle in which direction we're going just to help the O-line. Might be a little leaky, but we can still operate. So there's a lot finer detail when we get into it, but by and large it comes up a lot less often.
Bobby, how much is it? Go ahead, John. I get the sense that Nico is receiving. He's coming off his best year of his career, and then you all added, another top tier receiver. How has he handled that?
He's exactly what you want. Nico doesn't change. He puts his head down and he works every day. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. It could be the off season. It could be in season. He could be fighting through an injury. He could be 100% healthy out there grinding. I mean, he's one of the more consistent players we have, which is why he's so fun to be around. I mean, he's got great energy. He's a great young man and a really good receiver. And I mean, the way he goes about his business is as professional as you could be. He's fun to coach.
How good does it feel to have your whole offensive line back? And does that change any of the scripted play calling that you do in training camp?
It definitely changes some of the scripting. Everything we do scripting wise, we're not necessarily trying to always put our guys in camp in the best position possible. Sometimes you want to see guys have to fight through some adversity or some tough looks or sometimes they're really going to have to strain to get something done. And you bank those reps as you go through camp. You're able to talk about them really at every position. So that goes from the O-line to the receivers, tight ends, backs, quarterback. And once you get guys returning back to the field, you really have to make sure that they're not missing stuff that you've already hit, right? So we might be coaching, I'll use Brevin as an example. And Dalton Schultz might not have ever gotten a rep of what we're talking to Brevin about. Dalton has to find a way to bank that rep, to learn from Brevin's rep. And then as you go through camp and guys start to come back, say Dalton came back, it's our job as coaches, scripting-wise, to make sure Dalton gets an opportunity at that situation, just to make sure it's hammered in there. So scripting, it definitely plays a factor. As far as how the O-line is with everybody back out there, it's just, being a cohesive unit up front is a really big deal. That's on the O-line and the D-line. So having all the starters out there, all the guys that we want working with the ones, mixing in with the ones, really just helps build that cohesion, build them getting used to each other on combinations, on where they're going to be in pass sets and things like that.
Speaking of cohesion, have you seen that cohesion between Stephon Diggs and CJ starting to get a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, it's been growing since Steph got here. The amount of time those two have put in together with no one else around, no one watching, no video cameras filming for coaches, you guys not here, like they're making sure they're putting the work in. And we've known that, and we see it a lot of times before it comes to fruition in practice and in team periods. You can see it in routes on air. You can see how they talk, how they converse in between plays. Like it's been coming. So it was fun to see today that they connected as many times as they did.
What do you like about his skill set?
Yeah, it's easy to see Cam is familiar with the outside zone scheme. LA, when he was in LA and Minnesota, they both did something pretty similar to what we do. So not a lot of conversation with him has to take place with how to run zone in general. Now, we've had to talk about other run schemes we do. We ran a lot of gap. We've run a lot of other stuff that he's had to adjust to a little bit. But he wants to know it all. He is thirsty for knowledge. He's always asking questions. He wants to make sure that when we put him in, he's doing the right thing. He really wants to do anything he can to help us.
Can you talk about he was a top, kind of college recruit. Do you still see that kind of burst exposure talent that made him kind of a player like that?
Yeah, I think it's easy to see in these preseason games, the way he's gone out and he's made plays, he's made people miss in space. He's been at the right spot. He's had, I think, almost no mental mistakes, maybe one, but extremely reliable. You see all that.
Talked a lot about how deep the receiver room is. Can you talk about the kinds of things you guys look for as you get through preseason and decide ultimately who's going to be here? Like, what are you looking for from the guys in that room?
Yeah, I love that question because that's an easy question for us just because it hasn't changed in 2 years, right? Like we want people that play aggressive, confident, fast, and physical. And really, the more we're on the field and we go play in preseason games, I think it'll show as we go through this. It definitely has started to show in camp. The guys that wind up over the course of camp making a lot of plays are the guys that play with that mindset. Guys that just relentlessly compete, and they're going to do anything they can to make sure they win that rep, they get the ball, and when they get the ball, they finish with the ball in their hands. And that really is what it comes down to.
Bobby, there wasn't
Two more guys.
There wasn't a rule change as much as maybe like an emphasis point on what's been commonly termed as cheat motion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's made your radar, and does that require any sort of adjustments, change to the way you guys operate sometimes?
Yeah, we've always talked about what the emphasis is. Once we started, really the whole NFL started going to what we call on-the-move motions, plays where the ball snapped and someone's still moving, like jet motions, I think a lot of people call it, and anything in that family, we've always looked at and emphasized, hey, let's make sure we're not leaving early. And it got us in a game last year. We left early. I think CJ hit Tank on a huge play against Jacksonville at home, and that got called back because of a procedure penalty. That really, they called us for too many guys moving, but they also could have called Tank for leaving early. Same conversation. So we've always discussed it, but you got to have that hammered down, just making sure we're going lateral till the ball snapped because of what it can do and affect in the defense. So we definitely want to still be able to do things like that and motions like that, but you really got to be on it as far as everyone being on the same page with the snap count.
Bobby, how much?
Last one.
Bobby, how much did the trip to Cleveland help you all build as a unit?
Yeah, I always think having time away during camp as a group is one of the cooler things about the NFL. You get a chance as a team, you're away from, it stinks you're away from your family or your friends for a while, your hometown, but you got no one else but each other. And through the course of the season, with how long it is, that's what the season becomes. That within the coaching staff, within players, within the whole team, it's a really big deal to be able to just make sure we're dedicating time to each other, build relationships with people that you may not interact with or talk to all the time through the course of your daily schedule in the building. And then, D'Amico did a fantastic job. Cal did a fantastic job setting up stuff while we were there where we were able to get together as groups and bond and build relationships and get to know people. It was really fun.
All right. Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, everybody.
Who's up?
Matt,
Of course.
Look at the way the defensive line's getting off the ball. Do you see kind of them gelling and the timing and everything with everybody working their moves and their stunts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's obviously, when we talk about bringing some new guys into the system and sort of developing that attack mentality and the techniques we ask those guys to play, obviously the more work and the more reps they get at it, and we're kind of getting to that point of the year where it's really starting to come to fruition. So it's fun to see those guys. And it's, I'd say this, the D-line, more than any position, spends time by themselves, right? Because they're more an individual. They're more sort of isolated from the back-end guys. So, they spend so much time together. Some of that stuff in terms of, the games and the working together is really starting to gel as well. So, yeah, it's been fun to see. Sure.
Jalen said that coming into the season that he wanted to be more patient and he also wanted to play with controlled aggression. But now that he's been moving in and out of different positions, more aggressive, have you seen him be able to have that balance?
Absolutely. I think I said this to somebody some few weeks ago. I can't keep track anymore. I actually think him moving around has helped slow his mind down because he's really got to focus on where he's playing in which situation and which role. And so it's kind of just honed his focus a little bit. But I think if you guys remember the second play of the game, on that trap that we had. He's blitzing on that, and Pittsburgh double cadence trying to get him to show. So, I mean, in terms of, like, the control, like, last year he gets so eager to blitz, he would be, like, creeping up there, and then they'd see it and check out his stuff. And he just stood there like this and held it. And then on the snap, like, he knifed it in there and kind of cleaned it up. So I think, like, stuff like that are real examples of him just, like, slowing his mind down and, like, controlling the game. He's one of our, like, emotional leaders, obviously, and he's such, like, a hype man. I think he has to pull himself in sometimes, but I think it's been showing a lot out here. It's allowing him to make all the plays you guys are seeing him make.
There's been a lot of conversation about, Stephon Diggs' attitude, his energy, from a skill set standpoint.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Stephon Diggs, there's been a lot of talk about his energy, his attitude, from a skill set standpoint. How has he stacked up to previous years of watching him on tape?
Yeah, same. He's always a hard cover. I've gone against him a few times in my past. Just like he's such the precision route running, and then, like, the understanding of leverage and stuff in terms of getting open. And he's got wicked hands, like the ball's in his vicinity, he can snatch it. So, you couple that with obviously the energy and the emotion he brings, and you guys saw it out there today, the little back and forth we had going. It's cool for us to be able to compete against him, in a controlled environment where it doesn't necessarily count on Sunday. So he's got some of the better hands I've seen, and then his just ability to get open from an understanding standpoint and route running is pretty impressive.
A couple of people talk about Caleb Bullock's range.
Quick hook.
And now he's kind of been able to showcase.
Sure.
Nico mentioned the play that almost counted.
Yeah.
In the preseason game. It's not just the athleticism, the fact that it was in the film study. How is it? Is that something that he's learned in a short amount of time? It's something he came into the league with?
Yeah, I think that was part of his profile coming, out of college. When we evaluated him in the draft, it was something that he did. So it's a similar role. Like, that's how they played him a little bit, at SC. So I think the sort of anticipation and the timing or stuff that he's banked some of those reps and playing like a deeper zone, deeper post, playing off the quarter, those sort of things. So obviously the length and the speed play into that, like when he does get going, but he does have a lot of work back there. He's real natural at, like, reading quarterbacks, like feeling routes, coming up and trying to anticipate breaks. So that kind of helps him get a jump on some things. Sure. Sure.
I was going to ask, you asked about Taylor. What about Ambassador, just in general, what you're seeing with some of the newer guys in the secondary, that kind of physicality?
Yeah, Kamari's probably come in again with the mindset in terms of, like, the attack, the sort of aggressive mentality that we're looking for in those guys. He's all that. I don't know if you guys have spent any time with him. He is just all business-like and wants to work. So I think it's been a cool, like, mix of sort of young guys and vets in that room, with guys that have been here, guys, we got some veteran safeties with Jimmy and E. Murray and those guys helping that, and then obviously Sting having a few years in the system, and then you add the younger guys in. It's just kind of been a cool combination, similar, honestly, to the D-line talk of those guys gelling, and as you get to this point at camp, you just start to see, they start to see how they fit with each other and how they play off each other and what one guy's really good at, and they start to understand, okay, I know he's going to be here in this, so I can kind of do it this way. And I think that room, again, same as the other rooms, are starting to do that, and having Kamari back and working has been part of that. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, those fans are loud out there. Yeah.
What things have kind of stood out to you about his play?
Yeah, I think, I hate to say it this way, let me try to word this properly, like, just the physical nature of him, because in college he did so much of the ranging and the deep zone stuff, like, we've asked him to sort of play down to be physical and tackling, and he's shown that. So, like, just to, like, answer some of those questions, I guess, of, like, all right, when we ask him to do these things, or if we have to put him in this situation, we kind of felt pretty good about some of the stuff he was doing in the deeper part of the field. But to bring him down and for him to showcase, his ability to tackle and hit and strike some guys, and as much as we talk about range in the back end, in the pass world, like, for him to be able to go sideline to sideline and make some of those plays and hits on the sideline, he had some cleanup tackles, like, that was really good to see for us in game mode. Sure. Oh, yeah, sure, man.
Jake Hansen,
she's a pit bull, huh?
At linebacker.
Yeah.
Nico talked about how you guys put a lot on him.
Sure.
Train him at all the linebacker positions. You kind of see from his camp and kind of the growth from a couple years ago. He's an undrafted guy.
Yeah.
Maybe surprises a lot of people, makes the team. Hangs around with you guys last year, and now he's fighting it.
Yeah, I think that's probably been like his versatility is probably what's kind of been able for him to carve out a little world for himself, and he does a great job. That's not easy, especially at that position. The linebacker world, like there's different, not just the mental part, there's different skill sets we ask from each of those positions, subtle, like in terms of what coverage we're playing. So for him to be able to bounce back and forth and sort of fill in where we need him to has been awesome. I mean, I know like he was undrafted, like he was a really good college football player. I feel like people forget that he was a 2-time All Big Ten and all that stuff. So he's a good football player. I think he's just grown into that, and I'm not saying what he is or isn't, but if you're a backup or a rotational linebacker in this league, you have to be able to do that. You know what I mean? If you're going to be the next guy in, you have to be the next guy in at every spot type of thing. And so for him to have the ability to, as a coaching staff, to have comfort in him to just jump in, whatever it is, Mike, Sam, Will, hey, we need your nickel Mike, hey, back to Will, and it's pretty smooth and you don't worry about it. That's a huge relief for us to know you have that piece, and he's done a really great job of kind of owning that role. Sure. Cool. All right, guys. Yeah. Woo. Yeah.
Last time it was, we're looking forward to see what this new kickoff move is going to be. You had a couple games with it. What are your thoughts about it?
Yep, challenging, exciting, on both ends of the spectrum. Challenging and exciting, not figured out. All right, I don't have their secret recipe, and hopefully whoever thinks they do would be remiss and say that. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be an evolving process. Week 2, Week 3, Week 4 are going to look different than Week 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to continue to evolve and continue to ask players for feedback. One thing I do know is it's going to be a challenge weekly for us to cat and mouse, and there's going to be so much new exploratory things from, call it the other return units and us in coverage, that we're going to have to adjust mid-game every time we step out on the field. So we're going to see how versatile we can be in making adjustments.
To that point, is there any surprise that you've had so far from the kickoff?
Yeah, there's things that are not figured out from a league perspective. The rules are not 100%, so some of the things that have come up, the officials, how they're officiating it. So an example, we tried a squib kick, for lack of a better term, and it didn't make it to the landing zone. So the rule is it blows dead immediately for safety of the players and goes to the 40. In the Giants' previous game, same thing happened. It was not blown dead, and the play was played out. So because of that, it's a player safety issue. The refs, and as they, not talking bad about them, I'm just saying we all have to get caught up to speed on how this thing is really going to look. So surprising as far as blocker and runner and tackler. That's an evolving process. Definitely some things to learn, as I stated earlier, but surprising is more of like, hey, how this thing is really going to be enforced, officiated, what we can and can't get away with. Those are the things we're learning.
To the point of being surprised, like, is there a part of like nerves, like week 1, or like you're going to see something maybe no one showed in the preseason. It's going to be a completely different operation just entirely because no one's showing anything right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're not showing anything in week one. Will Burnham, our other special teams coach, he always says there's no greater feeling in the old rules than when I would say, okay, ball's in the air, hey, it's coming out, and we got to cover, or we're going to return the ball. We don't have that anymore. Now it's where eyes are fixated on half the unit and half the unit of what we're getting, so we can try and teach along the way, coming off of the field for the next play. So the anxiety is, I guess you'd say, they can try a reverse, a triple reverse, a sideline return, a middle return, and we have to diagnose quickly and move on to the next play. So I think that's what that not anxious feeling might be more than, hey, are we going to return or not? We know we are, so now it's how fast can we adjust and defend it.
Frank, I know that the NFL is broken down into 3 phases: offensive, defense, and special teams. Can you talk about how your special team unit stepped up in that Pittsburgh game last week?
Yeah, anytime you get a takeaway, that's, man, like, you can have a really average overall day. Complete wash. They got a return to the 28. We got one to the 20. You get a takeaway, bang. Game is completely changed. Conversely, got to make our field goals, right? So anytime you go out there, you expect points. And, you know, that's a wind out of the sails that right there type of moment. So there are some great things. You get a takeaway, fire it up. Got to go, man. If you can lead the league in takeaways, you're going to have a damn good special teams unit. So that's the goal. And was excited to see Brennan re-enter on a long punt. Tommy let that thing fly. Played with speed, got up through the white. We call it running the white of the sideline. And then re-entering with force, and that ball's on the ground. Face first always. No tuxedo.
Did you get a chance? When you went back to look at the film, when you had a sideline view as well, as excited and as hyped up as Tommy was?
Yeah, that's good competitive football, you know. 11 football players, no matter what position you play, football players. So excited for guys to play their style, guys to play with their emotion and who they are, and Tommy's no different.
Two feisty punters out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Something.
Oh, heck yeah, man. That'd be fired up to play against his old team. And first off, I have no. There's very few players that I respect more across the entire NFL than Cam. Good friend, great player, the best worker, and excited for his opportunity to go and continue his playing career. It was fun to go out there and see him and, yeah, compete against anybody who we line up against that Sunday.
Would I be misrepresenting it if I compared Kaimi's situation to maybe field goals being a driver for a golfer and maybe some of this kickoff stuff being, you know, shorter game, stuff like that, a little bit more placement? Am I on the track there when I kind of describe it that way?
Yeah. Cautionary tale, don't ever tell a kicker it's a chip shot field goal. There's no field goal. Can I tell a quick story? Yeah. I used an analogy in my meeting this morning and yesterday, and I showed a clip of Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11. And he had quoted to Matt Damon earlier in the movie, you know, if you lose focus in this game for 1 second, somebody gets hurt. And later in the movie, they're about to blow the door to the big Bellagio vault heist, and he forgot the batteries to the detonator. And Matt Damon chirps back, he says, you know, if you lose focus for 1 second. And I used that for the team, and I said to Kaimi, in a good way, we can never take any moment of a game, a field goal, casual or of any kind, and we need to be laser focused at all times. And that was a moment. So the analogy there, and even if it was a short field goal, by his standards, wants to make that kick every time. So field goals need to be pure. They need to be elevated and scooped to get it over the line of scrimmage, and straight drivers down the fairway, yes. And then there's going to be some more placement. So what kind of irons can you play with to stay on the analogy? That's going to be something legitimate. But knowing your club distance is got to be elite. If we can put the ball to the 1 yard line with location, that's going to be the secret right there. So that's not something we're seeing across the league, and then sometimes do I want it on the 18 or do I want to put it out of the back of the end zone and bring the driver back out? So you're not wrong. I think it's a fair analogy. Just don't tell kickers it's a chip shot on a field goal.
See you guys.